and I am joined by Dr. Ramsland right now. And just in full disclosure, I was at a conference with Dr. Ramsland, and we went out for a drink, and we were talking about serial killers, because that is her expertise. And she started to tell me how she went underground with the vampires, which I found to be fascinating. And I did not realize, Dr. Ramsland, that you also even had, like, fangs made for the whole experience.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. I wanted to find out what happened to this missing woman, and because I had done some writing with Anne Rice there were guides to her vampire universe, I wanted to go into this world. My literary agent thought I could get in, and I did. And I went to the parties. I went to meet people alone at night in various places. I went to a number of different events to find out what this subculture was about, hopefully to find this woman. I didn't find her, but I did find out a lot about the people and why they were so attracted to this subculture.
So why are they? I mean, is it more of like kind of a role play situation, or are these actual like vampires that actually drink each other's blood?
It's all of that. It was, at the time I was in it, it was a huge subculture, thousands, tens of thousands of people. The internet, there was no social media at the time. The internet had really just started. There were chat rooms, there were ways to connect. There were live action role-playing games. Then people would travel from one city to another for weeks at a time, playing out their roles. And the attraction is different for different people. Some wanted to be vampires because they wanted that sense of power and transformation and supernatural, larger-than-life aura. Some wanted to be victims. Some wanted to be vampire hunters. Some shapeshifters would get into this subculture. It overlapped with the goth subculture, so it was really quite rich.
Was there ever anything you saw that made you uncomfortable? Like, what was the craziest thing that you saw while you were pretending to be a vampire?
I think the blood sports was probably the craziest, where people would cut themselves, scarification it was called, but they would just let blood run all over them. There was blood drinking in my presence. There were people who formed kind of families where they were safe. It was like a safe sex situation where their blood had been tested for any kind of diseases so that they knew that drinking from one another was safe. And they weren't really into the immortality idea of the vampire, like the mythical creature. It was, they had redefined the vampire from my sense of Dracula and Barnabas Collins and all of that. They had completely redefined the vampire to be what they wanted it to be and to work for them. And that was really kind of interesting.
So what do you know about this Dayton, Ohio situation? Because apparently there's this big Netflix documentary that's going to be coming out later this year that's already getting a lot of publicity. What have you heard about what's been going on in Ohio? Or when I guess it was decades ago, really.
It was decades ago. Yeah. And I would have to say, bring evidence, because the vampire community back then and even now was not about human sacrifice. It was really about transformation, a sense of belonging for marginalized people. There are crimes committed, but they're rare for that community. And they're really more about the vampire metaphor, whereas a beheading is not part of the vampire metaphor. It's more, satanic or, some other kind of ritual. So I would suggest if this guy was actually murdered by these people, and I don't know that there's evidence that he was, had something to do with something else besides the vampires, because that really wasn't what that community was about.
I'm just thinking about some of the things that you yourself witnessed in terms of like the blood. I mean, if two people are willing, is it illegal to be to be a vampire?
It's legal to voluntarily share blood with other people, but there were people like John Crutchley comes to mind, where he would abduct women, hold them captive, and drink their blood. And that is illegal.
Yeah, of course.
That clearly he's crossing a line there. So it depends on what they're doing with it and whether the people involved are doing this voluntarily.
Listen, Dr. Ramsland, as the world's preeminent expert on serial killers, I have a very hard time envisioning you with the fangs and, you know, chilling with the vampires, but it's fascinating. I didn't realize you wrote a book on it. So thank you for sharing your expertise. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. Fun to talk to you.
Okay.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.